This is Mari Robeson of Love Lulu Creative, a podcast that supports and celebrates artists and creative entrepreneurs while giving back to the community in a unique and meaningful way. This is episode number 35, and I have such a great interview for you today. Today's episode is with the very lovely Chantal Larocque. She is the owner of Paper and Peony. Which kind of gives it away right there, right? She is a best-selling author of the DIY book, Bold and Beautiful Paper Flowers. We're going to talk about that on the show, on today's show. And we also just talk about how she gets into this whole world of creating paper flowers, from starting off really small with little tiny flowers to big wall features. And now she does amazing events with companies like Chanel and Sephora and Perrier-Jouet, and she's just really someone who is so interesting, and I just love this interview. I know you guys will really enjoy it as well. And if you are enjoying these episodes, please subscribe to the channel. It does make a big difference, and share them with your creative friends, because all of these different artists are coming into this world, creating different projects in different ways, and they all have unique advice that's so helpful for anybody starting out. So please share away. And that's it. Let's stay tuned for this really interesting interview with the very talented Chantal Larocque. Hi, Chantal. It's really exciting to have you on the show today. I think what you do is so incredibly unique and beautiful, and I have so many questions for you. I cannot wait to dive into this with you.
Thank you so much for having me today, Mary.
So first of all, it's Mari. I like Mary, but I go by Mari, and you're French Canadian, so I'm going to try to be very, very careful with how I say your name as well. So tell me about where you are from. Where are you from, Canada, or?
Yeah, I'm from Canada. Actually, I'm from Montreal, so my mother tongue is French. The reason you hear like a little French accent when I express myself in English. But I am located in the beautiful east coast of Canada, in Moncton, New Brunswick. And been here for 5 years, and I love it. I love the community. I love how supportive everyone are, for a woman with small business, entrepreneur and artist as well. So ever since I moved here, I think I've blossomed.
How come you moved to how do you say it? Moncton?
Moncton, New Brunswick, yeah.
How come you moved there? What made you move there?
It was my husband. Like, we lived for many years in Ontario, just a little bit outside of Toronto. And my husband works in construction, and we were kind of tired of the fast pace of living. Toronto is always go, 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 and then long commute on the highways. So his family, he's from the East Coast.
Okay.
He's from around here, like a little 3 hours north, but that was just too far from me, from civilization.
Right.
So I said, well, let's decide to go to Moncton, which is a fair-sized city where there's lots happening and where I can find so much supplies very quickly. And we've been here, and we are loving it. He still works part-time, semi-retired. He helps me a lot with the business. And we're just living the slow life.
Sounds fabulous. That sounds amazing. Okay, so you are now in Quebec. Oh no, you're in New Brunswick now. So tell me about how did you get interested in doing paper art?
Oh my goodness, paper art. I started when my father passed away. And I thought to create a beautiful album with happy memories with that. So I had no idea where to start. Like, you hear all those scrapbookings, and now I'm talking back 2009, where scrapbooking was really big. And
oh, right.
So I went to Michael's store, and when I saw the aisle about scrapbooking supplies, I thought it was like, oh my goodness, I felt so overwhelmed. It's just there's no ends to what you can create with
Mm-hmm.
paper
Mm-hmm.
and all the techniques. And anyways, this is all it started. I had paper and I create my albums with my dad, and I did another one with my friends. And then I had leftover paper, little scraps, and I decided to make cards, handmade cards.
Mm-hmm.
People really liked them. Like my friends were like, "Oh, these are so beautiful. You should sell them." And at the time, Etsy was oversaturated with handmade cards. So
Mm-hmm.
I was not very successful there. I never really thought of making money with craft.
I
But
mean,
then,
that's such a labor of love to make a handmade card, you
yeah,
know? Right. Yeah.
I love it because you get to express. And then when you give it to someone, you totally made that for that person, right? I
Mm-hmm.
think it's very
Mm-hmm.
personal. But anyways, my cards were not selling, and I thought, well, let's just try to sell the mini flowers that I was making for my cards as scrapbooking supplies. And that's how it took. Like it
Like
was
the little mini flowers that you would put like on just to embellishments on pages.
on my card now on my paper.
Ah.
And it was amazing, like overnight. Like I was just selling little kits. There was little kits of 5 mini paper flowers, like 3/4 inches of diameter, like very tiny,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
and all over the world.
And you were hand cutting all of these?
These were like I used tiny little punches that I would find at craft stores.
Oh, yeah, yeah, yeah.
Paper punch because they're so tiny.
Mm-hmm.
So I would use that, and then I looked at a couple videos online. Back then, there was not very many in 2009, But I found a couple techniques, how I can shape little paper flowers, and I'm like, oh well, I can shape my own style and create my own signature paper flowers, and that's how it all started. It became like such an addiction.
Oh, yeah. So, that's you got me kind of going down the rabbit hole of like the punching those little punching, whatever they're called. I don't even know what they're called. But do you have one of those, what are those die cut uh machines
Yeah,
called? Do
for
you use one of those too?
for years I used the Cuttlebug. It's all manual.
Oh, yes.
It's with dies with metals. And then I invested in a more like industrial type of machine with AccuCut, with wooden dies, and then you can custom make your own dies. And oh my goodness, so many, like thousands of petals we cut with those. Man,
Wow.
yeah. And at
Wow.
that time, my husband became my paper cutter because
You're retired, not so much anymore. You're cutting petals.
like 6, 7 sheets of paper, like thick, you know, at the same time, like just to roll it into the like manually roll it into the machine, the cutting machine. As of me, I could just do 1 or 3, like
Right,
taking a little
right.
bit of the paper. So that saved me a lot of time until he discovered or he worked it out a way of cutting all my petals, all the shapes that I could design, like I could trace on a piece of paper a new shape. And now he can cut 100 petals in like 5 minutes just with the power tools.
Oh.
And when I see, like I have the book and then there's the templates, and a lot of people use the Cricut machines or the
Mm-hmm.
Silhouette machines
Mm-hmm.
that are like computerized.
Mm-hmm.
I've never used. I don't even know how to use those machines, just
Yeah.
because of the quantity I need when I do my work.
Right.
It wouldn't be practical. And then now I can just design my own things, and we cut it.
I love that.
I love it too.
That's really great. You sound like you have a wonderful, my husband's wonderful too. He always comes up with ingenious things. And I'm like, who thinks of stuff like that? But thank you. Thanks for helping me with that.
Yeah, it all started when I had a big order of doing I think 500 magnolia paper flowers,
Oh my
and they were
goodness.
for a certain size that there was no dies. I didn't have any dies for it to use the cutting machine, which it would have been still pretty like labor intensive. So we ended up having to cut them all by hands. And by the time I was done, he says, "This is ridiculous." His brain started working like nonstop to find petals without slavering for days, for a big
Yeah, right.
figures. I mean, that was, yeah.
That's really interesting because that's the kind of issues that a small business will run into is like, oh, I'm just making these things and it's fine. But then you start getting like quantity orders and you're like, how do I meet this? And that's where a lot of people will not, and they'll shut down the business. But instead, you were able to kind of push through that challenge and figure out how can we create something that can make multiple petals at the same time so that we're not being so labor intensive and we can still create these big
That's
displays.
we even talked about this week. My husband, it says, what would you do if you had to cut all of these by hand? I said I probably would have shut down.
Yeah, right. But you pushed through it, and he helped you kind of figure it out, which is I think a very important thing for any business person to know. Like you're always going to hit that point of like getting too big, or do you keep it working at this one level? I mean, jewelry artists face that all the time, right? Because they're making one of a kind pieces all the time. So how do they get like a big order from Nordstrom's? How do they fulfill that? Fulfillment becomes a big deal for all businesses once they start to grow. So, but let's talk about that. Why did you have to make that many big magnolia leaves? What was the project?
Oh, that's a few years ago, but the project I believe was for an event. Like I do a lot of projects for event planner or marketing or agencies.
So you do, because I've seen like those big walls of flowers that you do that are just amazing. Is that what the project was?
This one, you know what? I never got to see pictures, even though the client says to me, "Oh, yeah, I'm going to send you the pictures with the magnolia." I would have loved to see that because that was one of the last big project I did completely by hand. Like the cutting and everything. But yeah, it was for. I wished, like I said, I wish I had a picture of that one actually. But yeah, it was for an event, and I don't. It's 5 years. It's when I first moved here, so it's. But I just remember the cutting part.
Yeah, right. That's the focus of it. So you make these paper flowers, and you're obviously known. Your company's Paper and Peonies. Do you say peony or do you say peony?
Well, I say peony.
Peony. That's how I say it. Okay, good to know. And so you're doing. I saw that you do some bridal bouquets, and you're known obviously for the peonies, and then you do the flower walls, and you have a gorgeous Etsy shop. So you're also selling. Are you selling kits as well?
I do. Yeah, I started to sell those DIY kits because of the book. It's all the kits.
Yes, we'll go talk about the book in a second, but we are going to get to the gorgeous book.
Yeah, they're all from the book, so it's easy. Some people don't want to cut it because some people the templates, I have them online. I have them on my website, but they're not for cutting machines. They're just PDF files. So I thought I'd sell some kits, to some people that wanted to give it a try. They have my book, and then if they like it, then they can have fun and create their own paper flowers.
Yeah. So this was a really organic business that it started just with you wanting to create some really beautiful memorial for your father, and then it kind of just evolved. Or did you have any background studying art and design?
At all? No.
What were you doing? What kind of work were you doing prior to that?
Life. I'm turning 47 this year, and I'm like, where?
It goes fast.
Yeah, so fast. When I was in when I finished high school, I decided to take some time off just to see, because I'm a very passionate person, and I didn't want to just take a course like all my friends were doing, like like computer, or like back then it was to be like a typewriting. So that kind of specific course, or to just I didn't know. I really wanted to make sure that I understand who I was and how I wanted to live my life before I said, okay, well, I'm going to study that and become that. So I took a year off, and all of a sudden I tried so many little things, and I got into a restaurant business. And I really discovered the art of cooking. For me, cooking is like a form of art where I can express myself.
Absolutely.
And I
Absolutely.
enjoyed it so much. I enjoyed everything about hospitality, in this way, like table settings and
Mhm.
marrying the wine with the food, trying different kind of ingredients, spices and herbs. It's just like, for me, it's just a, well, when I'm in the kitchen, I'm it's I'm in another world. It's just, I'm very, very happy because this is where I get to express myself.
Mhm.
So that's the how I realized that there's this artist in me that just screams to come out
Mhm.
in any way.
Mhm.
So I tried different kind of medium. Cooking's always been my favorite, you know, thing to do. But when I was discovered the world of paper and scrapbooking, with my dad's albums and making the cards, I realized, the 3D paper flowers. I just It just went on. It's like I clicked,
Mhm. Mhm.
and the designs and things that I do, like people says, do you sketch your art? Like, if when you do a bouquet for someone, do you sketch it? Would you? I've never done that before. It's all in my head. I can see the finished product, just like the recipe. I can taste. I know how it's going to taste before I even started,
Mhm.
just because of, it's like in my mind, the ingredients and everything makes sense. And I do the same thing with my art, with the paper art, the floral art.
Mhm.
And yeah, so I didn't study. I don't have any business course either. I'm not a business person at all. But yeah, like you said, it just grew that way, one thing after another. And I got really blessed with amazing projects that I never take anything for granted.
Right. So I really like this a lot. My husband loves to cook. That's his happy creative world as well. And it's amazing. And I get to be the recipient of it, which is maybe not so amazing because I eat too much of it. But I really do enjoy that. And I do think that there is that aspect of being a creative where it's just a natural talent. Because when you started making flowers, especially your large scale flowers, that wasn't really something that existed, really. I mean, it was hard to find that kind of information on the internet, so you were actually kind of at the forefront of what, this could look like as a business.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I remember when I started, like I said, I started very small. And in 2009, Chanel had a fashion show, like, the runway. It was with
Mm-hmm.
paper flowers. It was just gorgeous, magnificent. And then after that, I got some inquiries. I guess people were searching on the internet, paper flowers or backdrop or giant paper flowers. And of course, I was listing all my little things on Etsy as paper flowers. So I
Mm-hmm.
got so many inquiries, but I was really intimidated with the giant paper flower world.
Mm.
I refused many projects because of that. Because I'm
Mm.
like, well, I specialize in tiny little paper flowers. I don't do large scales like that.
How interesting.
Uh-huh. So
So when did you go, hey, maybe I should do this paper thing that are bigger? When did
well,
you?
it's just at some point I had some paper and I started to do some experience, play with it and do some trying and said, oh, wow, well, look at that. I can make paper flowers. Like, it's not so hard. And then when I had the basic techniques down path, there was nothing to stop me. Like, I could make my own
Mhm.
design, my own paper flowers, my own styles. Because I don't know if you notice, like on Pinterest or on Instagram, you see a lot of those talented artists, paper flower artists that do giant paper flowers. But I found that their walls, it's just the same flower side by side. It's very, like, for me, I like something that is more blending, like
Mhm.
some small with large and then lots of leaves, foliage, just to create that lush kind of a backdrop. So, and I started to design my own, like, people know, like, when they see my pictures, even though my name's not there, they know it's mine, just
Mhm.
the way it's designed. And so I experiment, like, with a few flowers, and I'm like, okay, well, I can do this. And then a couple of weeks later, I received an inquiry from an agency in Florida. They say, well, we need 3 walls, 8 by 8. So can you make flowers to cover, that kind of the size? I'm like, okay, yeah, sure, I can do that.
You're calling in your husband. You're like, honey, get the
And then
machine ready.
still cutting by hand. So
Oh my goodness.
I had a couple evenings with my girlfriends. I bought some cheap champagne, like bubbly, and then had some chick flicks on the TV, and then let's do some cuttings.
What a great idea. The girls, I love it.
So that's how it started. And after that, like, I shipped all the flowers to Florida, and then they mounted the walls, and she showed me the pictures. And now these walls are still on their websites.
Wow.
They're
Cool.
renting it, like has. Anyways, I was so impressed and so excited with, wow, like this is just a completely different world of what I was doing, from little flowers and bouquets. And then I just launched it in my shop.
I think it's so great. Okay, you kind of touched on something really interesting to me. I'm a surface designer, so I will take, in fact, lately I'm getting ready for a show, so I've been working a lot with flowers, and painting the flowers that I paint. And then you can take those flowers and you can arrange them to create a pattern. And, you're just doing it in 3-dimensionally, whereas I'm doing it on paper, painting it 2-dimensionally. You're doing this 3-dimensional, but you're also doing the same kind of composition, which is when you were saying that you like the blend of it. That's taking that creative process even further. Instead of it just being the same repeat, you're actually blending it and mixing it so that there's a color story and there's a flow and a rhythm to it. And in fact, I was just on your Instagram before we got on here, and I looked at the picture you posted, and I was like, is that a digital like image? Or is that like, they're like, you did like a stripes of the flowers, and I thought, my gosh, like this could be wrapping paper.
Yes,
like
yes.
You could photograph your image, your 3-dimensional, and you could turn it into wrapping paper or fabric or wallpaper, which is a whole nother level. More business ideas for you.
Do you know what? I wanted to do that for so long, but I have an account with PicMonkey where you can do photo editing.
Mm-hmm.
And I recently discovered that I can remove the background of my picture.
Mm-hmm. Right.
So the last couple of pictures you probably see on my Instagram are actually, I was playing with it, just with my own little flowers, and I multi-layered some design and just created that. But
well, I'm telling you, you got there's a whole nother area you could go into. I really, I applaud you, because it's, I do have a degree in art and design, and I have done this for a long time, and it does come very naturally to you. Like, you can put together the composition, and it's amazing that you didn't have any training to see things that way. You're just naturally doing it. So hands off to you, girl. That's wonderful. So you do those gorgeous signature walls, and you do, also, let's talk about I think the bridal bouquets are a really clever idea that you offer.
Yes. I used the first few years that I was selling my flowers on Etsy, I booked so many weddings. I have so many beautiful brides that send me pictures of their wedding day with the bouquet, with the bridesmaids and the boutonniere. It's just...
And even just the decor, like the way that you decorate the chairs and the...
Yes.
Right.
I love it. It's beautiful. It's just for the last couple of years, I kind of slowed down in taking projects like that, because I'm more... I want it to be more challenge, company and agencies. So I try to keep some times available for them. I've been working with them for so many years. So I slowed down the wedding industry. I still book weddings. But,
so you're doing a little bit more working with the agency, because I saw that like Malibu Island Spiced Rum and Perrier-Jouet Champagne. Those are clients of yours?
Uh, they're clients of my client. Like the agencies, I work for Grow Marketing, and then another one, Blue Spring Studio in San Francisco. Different agencies that create beautiful events for their clients.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm their to-go girl if they need paper flowers.
Wow, that's really great. How did you make that connection? How did you meet those agencies? Or did they just find you?
They found me, and I whatever they inquire about, I always give more than they expect.
That's
and
great advice.
Beautiful relationships, and some of them have been working like since 2011.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just a beautiful, they say, hey, Chantal, we're having a project. Our client wants to do this, it's for like the Sephora show in Las Vegas or something else, for Dior or Chanel. And then I'm like, yeah, sure, I can do it. Just I make a few samples, and I think it's important to always, when you have clients like that, you give your best, even more than what they expect, and then they come back.
Mm-hmm.
And
that's really good advice. We'll get to that in a little bit, but that is excellent advice. Okay, that's super interesting. Those are some impressive clients to get to work with. Yes. Let's talk about the book, because the book is fabulous, and anybody who's interested in this world of paper flowers needs to have this book. It's just like the main source to understand how to create these gorgeous floral designs. So tell me about how that all came about. Was that your idea, or did a publisher approach you and say, why don't you turn all this work into a book? And how did it come about?
No, it's actually, you're right, the publisher contacted me. They were interested in putting a book together. They specialize in how-to books, DIY. Mm-hmm. And they have a beautiful collection of fantastic books, like to learn so many crafts. And so they approached me because they like the idea of paper flowers made of cardstock. Because there's a few books out there, fantastic books, how to make paper flowers out of crepe paper. And my techniques are completely different because it's a cardstock. It's like a stiff paper. Mm-hmm. So they wanted to have a book made of that because they realized that there was none.
So again, how did they find you?
On Etsy.
Yes, that's interesting, because Etsy's got so many people on Etsy. But you've been on there for a long time, so you probably pop up pretty high in the search engine.
I was really impressed, because like you said, actually right now the competition, well, there's so many fantastic, like the paper flower community just explode the last couple of years. Mm-hmm. And then you see a lot of artists on Etsy right now. But that's back in 2016 when they first contacted me. That was one of my busiest year on Etsy, with sales, with weddings and backdrops and so many projects. And at first I wasn't sure, for so many years I was so protective of my design and my techniques, not sharing too much how I do things, just because I knew that one day there's some, people that compete, and at some point, this is what my bread and butter, right? Mm-hmm. So you kind of wanted to protect a little bit.
Sure.
Created and worked so hard on. And so,
but not to interrupt you, but I am going to interrupt you. I totally understand that. I can 100% get the thought of not sharing your templates and all those ideas. But just like I was saying before, no one is going to have your sense of composition and eye of how to put these pieces all together. It's one thing to know how to draw out flowers, another thing to be able to turn it into a beautiful wallpaper.
Exactly.
Yes. So Okay, go on.
So, so I started to see a lot of my flowers, or people try to imitate my style a little bit, or my design, like to make my paper flowers. And then when the publisher contacted me, I said, well, you know what? If they wanted to copy my work, might as well do it right. But tell them how to.
Right.
So that's why I was like, okay, let's do it. It was a big jump, you know. Everything about books, writing, and everything. It was completely. I was clueless, so I did a lot of research. I educated myself, you know, how to write and how to put together everything. And then the editor, that I worked with, it's just a fantastic team of people, so knowledgeable and so helpful and extremely patient. And I had a deadline to submit my manuscripts, and I took all the photo as well.
Wow.
So I had to design everything, like even just to write the book, the compositions, everything, all the techniques, every steps I had to do. I had to repeat those steps so many times. That was a big solo project that took me over a year to do. But it's everything in there is from my heart, literally. And I'm so happy how it turned out. Like, it's 2 years old now. And it's even today, I still get feedback, like some reviews on Amazon, how people enjoy the book, how easy the instructions are to follow, and then the pictures that I took of the steps. So yeah, it was
a labor of love. And
yeah,
right, and really, really great. And I'm going to link it here in the show notes because it's a gorgeous book with very helpful information on everything. And you know what I think it does for you, Chantal, is it sets you as the authority. Like it puts you as, you know, you're the Martha Stewart of paper flowers.
Yeah.
So and you know, there could easily be more spin-offs of that book as well, with different, you know, table setting designs or whatever. But I wanted to ask you, you said you photographed everything. What type of camera are you using for your photographs?
It's a Canon. This is how not professional I am. I have the lightings, I have the studio and everything. It's a very old camera that I have. It's a Canon. I just purchased a brand new lens for the project, just to make sure that everything is sharp, because they were really specifics on how they wanted to have the photo to look. It was a lot of work, a lot of editing.
Right. I just think it's really interesting because, I mean, you're a solo creative, and people need to understand that there's more than just you making a flower that's really pretty. I mean, you have to photograph it. You have to understand some ins and outs of web design so you can upload it on your website. You have to know how to market yourself on social media platforms. And you also, I noticed you have Facebook groups where you're doing you're teaching workshops, which is brilliant. Of course, that makes sense that you would be doing that. So you've got, it's kind of like you have your foot in all these different places. It's not like, oh, I get up and I just make flowers all day.
I wish I can do, like, sometimes I wish it can be just like that.
I know.
I can have someone that can take care of everything else, and all I can do is play with paper and create.
Right.
I want to do that all day long.
I hear you, sister. I'm the same way. I would love to just sit and paint all day long, but you know, there's just so many other aspects to the business, and that's kind of a part of why I want this podcast to be out in the world, is so that creatives, when they're starting to get into a creative career, that they understand that it's not just going to be sitting at an art easel all day painting or being able to create these beautiful three-dimensional flowers. You've got to also understand business and, you know, how much your materials cost, as you know how to mark up and make enough money on this beautiful flower so that you can continue to make flowers, you know, or work with agencies. And I mean, I really love how you said, give them more than what they want, like blow them away every time. Yeah. There's just so much more to it than just the simple.
Yes. And even like with the social media, and it's just, you always have to be on top. You know, you always have to be just anyways, ready for something new, like to follow the market and how it's going. So it's not just, like you said, I wish I can just stay in my studio and make paper flowers all day and create beautiful bouquet. And I have so many ideas in my head. It's spinning, but the reality is, like you said, we have to just do all the other things to make sure we're still, on top.
Right. And it is kind of, social media is a little bit of a tricky world because I know personally I've had all kinds of really crazy things happen on my personal life that I would never post about. It's just, that's not the platform for it, but it does take energy away from trying to be on top of it all the time. And just, I think that we all need to kind of ease up on ourselves and just be like, life is going to be happening and social media will always be there, and be there. Do it when you've got the energy to do it, but don't like kill yourself to feel like you have to do that when more important things are possibly happening in your life.
Yeah.
It's such a strange thing in some ways. But
yeah.
So the great advice about offering more. So was there any business advice that was ever given to you when you were starting out on this paper peony journey that was helpful for you?
One of the paper flower artists that I really appreciate, it's Jennifer Tran. And she's based in Australia, and she creates just the most fantastic paper art with crepe paper. And one thing that she mentioned once is not to don't just stick with templates. Sometimes I will post a design and people say, "Do you have the templates for that?" Which templates are helpful. They're the base of what you can create with paper. It gives you just a basic, but you have to be able to create outside those templates lines, to feel restricted from that. And one of advice that I really appreciate, there's no such thing as perfect paper flowers. It's like in nature. When you look at nature, like I used to be very like I'm a perfectionist. And then we grow zinnias in our gardens and all kinds of flowers. And every year, like I take my camera and I do some close-up, like I take some nice, beautiful pictures. And I look at the flowers and they're imperfectly perfect. And that I think it's important as an artist, just to let go and just create.
Yeah, it offers a little bit more interest when you can see, I always say like some of my favorite watercolors that I've done are like where I can see my pencil sketch behind it, just a little bit of it. It's just like, it's not totally perfect. I didn't erase that. And, it's just like, this was the flow of what was happening when I was painting that. And I agree with you. Because sometimes when it's so perfect, then it doesn't look real. You want it to be real, and real flowers have droopy petals, and they go this way and that way, and
it's like right now my husband, he cuts the petals, like I trace them, and for my peonies I have the same templates, just when I for the kits that are from the book. And I print it and then he cuts it, but it's cut by hand, so there's never going to be two sets completely alike.
Yeah, I like
and
that.
That's why I try to teach, like the people that are using my book and working with my book, is just don't just stick to the templates. You can use that as a base to make your own flower.
I think that's really great, because I do think that people, when you're teaching them art and stuff, they want to do it exactly how you are showing them. You're like, no, this is just an idea. Yeah. And you find your voice in that. That's very, very good advice. Well, this has just really been great. Is there anything else you'd like to share with us? What's next for you?
What's next? I'm not sure. It's I'm currently, like, I still negotiate some little projects, with clients. I can't really talk right now. Last year, I had my flowers feature on the official Canada Post stamp.
Oh, yes. I wanted to ask you about this. There's another project I want to ask you about, too. The Canada stamp, that was gorgeous. The gardenias.
Yes.
Oh, right. How did that happen?
That I'm still in shock.
Wow.
It's an agency based in Toronto. I guess they they received a contract from Canada Post, and they have to come up with ideas and designs, right? So they were looking at maybe doing some 3D paper flowers, and they found me through LinkedIn, which is
Wow.
one of the platform that I completely neglected because
Yeah, right, right.
I'm not really looking for work, right, or to impress somebody for, like it was just, I had an account, but didn't really do anything with it.
Right. I'm same,
I
same.
updated it a little
Right.
bit. But yeah, so he contacted me through that, and then he says, "Well, I have a project, but I need you to sign some disclosure forms, like so you can't really talk about it." I'm like, "Okay,
Right.
sure."
Non-disclosure.
And then he called and explained to me the project, what it would be, and I'm like, "Oh, okay." And then after that, I realized, well, this is kind of a big deal. He's like, "Yeah, it is. It is quite a big deal because when you think about it, even like across Canada, like millions of artists that painters or like so many
Oh yeah. No, you're right. I get it.
artwork that
It's
they
kind of
can
like a dream of mine. I would love to be. When you make it on a stamp, you've made it.
oh yeah, that's it. That's why like right now like I'm just like projects are coming to me, but I'm not yeah, that's it.
Yeah, that's a big deal. And then you also won an award for it, right?
Yes,
The print
they
materials. Hmm.
for for that printed kind of uh, material,
Materials.
for the
Hmm.
printing. Yes, they won gold for that. The Summit Award. It's quite an honor,
So not only was it great for you, you made them look good. That's a win-win. That's really wonderful. I saw that. It was very impressive. And I'm glad you brought it up because I did want to touch on that. There's another project that I thought was really, really touching, and it's the Brain Project. And can you just tell us a little bit about that? Because I was really, really touched by that.
Yes, the Brain Project is it's an organization that every year they choose, like they have like thousands of applications, and they choose 100 artists, and we receive, like for that year they send me a, a brain, on a stand. It's a 3D piece, and then we get to embellish it. Or if you're a painter like you can paint it. Like everybody can submit about that,
Mm-hmm.
and then you create the story. Because the Brain Projects it's for people who suffer Alzheimer or brain
Mm-hmm.
disease.
Yeah, right. Or
And
an injury, maybe. Mm-hmm.
I have friends that they were caregivers of parents that were losing their memories.
Mm.
It's not just hard on the person who suffered from that, but it's hard also on the person who takes care of them.
Oh, yes, very
When you
much
look at
so.
your father and
Mm-hmm.
was all your life so full of love, and all of a sudden he looks at you and he doesn't know who
Mm-hmm.
you are.
Mm-hmm.
That's kind of, and I went through that with my grandmother too, and it's kind of like a shock.
Yeah,
You love that
yeah.
person so much, and all of a sudden this person is just blank in front of you.
Mm-hmm.
So when I was selected to do that, I was really, really happy because I thought it was a way for me to really express how I feel about that. And I dedicated my brain art to the caregivers.
Mm, I love that.
Yeah, so the way I designed it, I picked all sorts of black and white pictures that represented our memories, our past.
Mm,
And then I added some cute little forget-me-not
mm,
that symbolized the fact that even if like it's just to remember, even if they're still with us, to remember them,
mm-hmm.
anyways. It was an honor, and the brain was featured in a really, really busy spots in Toronto for the whole summer.
Mm.
Really nice. Yeah.
I love your story. I think it's just that was really brilliant, and that was very intuitive to come up with the black and white photos and then adding the flowers to it. Ah, I just love that. So I'm glad I remembered to ask you about that. Um, Well, thank you so much, Chantal. I mean, this really, wow, you got a lot of things going on. I'm so impressed, and I'm so grateful that you were letting me have this time with you to interview you. So thank you.
Well, thank you for giving me a chance to chat a little bit about it because it's such a fun and a happy art.
Hmm.
You know, it's magic. You know, when you get pieces of paper and all of a sudden you shape it a certain way, and then you add a little bit of glue, and then next thing you know, you have this beautiful paper flowers in your hand. It's happiness.
It
It's
is
just
happiness. I agree. Except, it's not for everybody because I would definitely burn myself with a glue gun. I am not handy with a glue gun. My husband's removed them all from the house. So maybe it's not my happy, but it's definitely makes me happy looking at it.
yeah, no, for sure. Yeah.
Well, thank you so much.
No, really appreciate that.
Yay.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for joining me today. If you like this podcast and you'd like to support it even more, you can join me over on patreon.com/Mari Robeson and become a patron of mine. If you're a patron of mine, you'll receive bonus episodes every month, only for patrons. You'll also receive 20% off all the merchandise in my online shop, marirobeson.bigcartel, and you will be receiving free printables every month that will be of my artwork, and they're some really fun things. You can follow along on Instagram and you can see what I'm creating just for my patrons. I would deeply appreciate it. It would help me keep the lights on, and it would help me pay all the fees that it takes to put together a podcast like this so that I can keep supporting all the artists, keep bringing you great information, keep paying it forward to the next generation of artists. It's just a wonderful thing, and I would really deeply appreciate your support.